evening, ladies and gentlemen. Live from the streets of Long Beach, California. It's time to go racing at the final road course of the Dark Horse IndyCar schedule. My name's Scott Rankin. Alongside of me is not Seth Cole. It is indeed Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, I packed a surfboard, so I know where I'm heading after this race.
Well, absolutely. I'm a little bit more of an indoor kind of person, so I think I'm going to go ahead and be sitting up in those press booths up there, just enjoying the race. Now, Scott, we were talking right before broadcast, and we were kind of really just nailing down how difficult a track Long Beach is. Do you care to take us through some of the corners?
Yes. Sure. I mean, who do you want to focus on here? Let's get that nailed in, and we'll go right through because it's. I mean, all the corners, the level of risk, the level of danger that comes through is quite high, no matter where you are.
Let's see. Maybe we've got Charles Teed here. I think like he just finished his second lap, so he may still be going around. So he's going to be able to take us on a little bit of a nice, really trek through the track. So right now he's into the really the fountain area, going into this huge right-hander. Scott knows the technical terms for these corners a lot better, but I can tell you, at least from my limited experience, it does get a lot more bumpy in these.
Yeah, there was a lot of wall involved for Matthew Rodriguez's warm-up laps. Down here, you've got to be very careful. If you fall out to the right-hand side of the road on corner exit, there's a lot more bumps out there than in the center of the road. And then a quick flick back to the right before you head down the back stretch. Charles Teed will pull that car up. He's done with his qualifying attempt. Not the
David
best.
Cook is still going.
There you go.
I'd say David Cook would be another good example. He's got into the second part of the course here. And we really just kind of had to note how difficult some parts of the courses are. I mean, it's almost like a Martinsville-type paperclip in that final corner where really you are almost a three-wheeler doing that corner.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, you're very much on the edge of stalling, and there will be the option to go through their single file at some point tonight. David Cook sets a lap of 109.8. That says to me there's a lot of mistakes there on the lap. Down towards the fountain here. Gonna want to put that right-hand side tire up on the roundabout section there, the paved section. Helps the car to turn in just a little bit. Bumps, you name them. You're running right up against the wall most of the way around the lap. Down here. Gonna turn it into the right once more. Head down the backstretch. Bump some of the braking zone here. Probably one of the more critical braking zones on the lap. Flow the car out, try and get back onto the power, cross the middle section of the road, being very careful to keep the rear wheels stable, get the car turned in nice and early there. You can cut those curbs. That's not a slowdown. The backstretch. You get all of 10 seconds worth of breathing room before you head into the final section. Another right-hander, cut the corner down there. Once again, it's pretty much curb cut city here in Long Beach, and the guy that has managed to become the king of curb cut city, Henry Bennett, by 0.4 of a second over Rick Ravon. And I tell you what, if the championship battle between those guys heats up anymore, it will be mandatory surfing after the race, that's for sure.
So realistically, we saw so many cars kind of in qualifying have issues in just single car qualifying. Now, Scott, you kind of mentioned this earlier, going into that fountain section, even coming off of pit road, this track is just so tight, so technical. I mean, where do you think the majority of the passing is going to happen here?
And one, and at the end of the backstretch. Pretty much other than that, it's not really an opportunity to pass unless somebody makes a mistake. So it's all about looking for the mistakes and capitalizing upon them. And there will be a heap of those here tonight. Remember as well that this isn't your current generation of IndyCar, so there is only one tire compound. That's going to be critical. How the guys look after their tires going into tonight, how they look to extend their fuel stints, how they look to set themselves up, Matt. I'll tell you what, with only 50 seconds left before we start rolling off underneath pacing, how do you think this one's going to go? You thinking caution? Well, I mean, it's not going to be a caution fest. You thinking localized caution fest?
I could see localized cautions. I really think the first 5 laps will be more or less your kind of chaos zone here, where everyone's trying to get as much really positioning as they can get. Everyone still has 10 push to passes they can utilize at any time. I'm a huge fan of utilizing those push to passes at the beginning of the race when you're all so close, really taking advantage of how much of that extra power you have. Then maybe save about 2 or 3 of them for around near end of the race when we're starting to have more battles and at the end of pit strategy.
Well, typically the way that these guys have gone about it this season has been save the push to passes to the end of the race, if they remembered to program a button for that. Well, it's too late for that now. If you've forgotten, now you're locked in. Well, cars are going to roll off here. Let's see if they opt to go with the safer variant of the roll-off here and single file it out through the final corner. Did you happen to see the last race of the IndyCar schedule and Pato Awards Championship come undone in the final corner?
I didn't catch all of it, but I did catch a little bit of it, and I kind of remember the social media blow up after that, where kind of the heartbreaker.
Well, here it is. Round in the final turn. They're going to take it 2x2, so great job by the field and everyone allowing each other enough space to do so. Pace car has pulled off on a pit lane, looking for that green, and there it is! Henry Bennett gets the jump, he gets clear, and he's on the run down into turn number 1. Ravon will see if he can pull things up nicely in beside him. Whether or not everyone's going to file themselves out nice and deep here, no, it looks like they're going to get through nice and cleanly on that first lap, and that's critical. You've got to get this first lap in the books.
I saw a little bit of smoke there back in the pack, at least maybe round 9th or 10th. Looks like everyone's still in one piece, but that's going to be kind of a watching zone later on, just making sure that you don't outbrake yourself and outbrake the guy in front of you and cause a 2-3 car incident. Yep,
heading down into turn number 6. There was that puff of smoke up in the background. There is 2 cars still crawling their way around through the fountain section, so we'll get an eye on who those are here in just a couple moments. One of those will be Jimmy Drynan. His car looks all sorts of messed up. I'm wondering, yeah, it's Moskowitz. Moskowitz was the other one, so those will be 2 guys that are all caught up.
Looks like Drynan had some issues just to begin off. Looks like he didn't even really start off that well. I mean, looks like he missed the start, hit the front straightaway all on his own, unassisted, just kept driving into the wall and then missed turn 1. Looks like he slid it, hit the first turn. Not really sure what's happening with the Drynan machine, but he's definitely had better days. And then in the Dylan Moskowitz camp, Moskowitz was kind of following in Drynan. So I'm not really sure what happened for those two, but obviously terrible, terrible start to the race. Oh, it looks like Moskowitz actually got slowed down and maybe hit Drynan here in the fountain.
Oof, I mean, that's, so we were talking about it before the race, that is not a section of the track that's really wide enough to overtake.
Absolutely, but they're very tough break. But look at Henry Bennett. Henry Bennett, one of those guys where pretty much any given road course, he has a shot here. And then obviously looking back here, you've got Rick Ravon, and Ravon got us a little bit loose off of that corner. I'm kind of looking through here, and I'm seeing some names that I don't usually expect to see him, and some names that I usually expect to see up here. Eric Schaus, very good at road courses. I don't know if he'd call himself really a road course guy, but typically whenever we call him to a road course, typically his number gets called. Same with Covey Moore, where Covey usually doesn't have breakneck pace on road courses, but man, he always is here.
Yeah, he's there, and it's all about consistency, especially when you come to the tight, twisty streets of the Long Beach road course. Once again, Bennett's going to file down in the lead. He's started to build a little bit of a margin here to Rick Ravon. Did have a little bit of a bobble in the middle sectors of that lap, so Ravon closed up a little bit, but other than that, it's been pretty much faster than him by a good margin. The gap now out behind to Eric Schaus of 3 seconds. A little bit behind Covey Moore as well. David Cook has managed to grab a whole bunch of spots, started 9th up to P5. The qualifying...
Peterson's around.
Oh no, not Eric Peterson.
Looks like Peterson ended up going around right before the fountain. Just taking a look back of what happened, it actually looks like he may have had an issue going into turn 1.
Yeah, he's just jumped on the power and the rear end of the car's rotated on him, so unlucky for Peterson. He has managed to flick that car back around without impacting any other driver, so great job to do. And that's one of the critical factors here, is you're going to have a mistake. It's about minimizing the damage that comes out of that mistake today, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, and absolutely. And again, this is not a clear-cut race where, hey, these kind of incidents early on will impact you, but we've seen at previous road course races that, hey, these guys have been able to claw back. It's not necessarily kind of a deathbed if you have incidents happen early on or you spin early on. But, hey, it's an uphill battle and you have to be perfect. And, Eric Peterson, one of those guys that we kind of have to knock on wood every time we mention him because, he will be up inside the top 10, top 5 fighting. And the moment that we mention his name, he will just find the nearest wall and run straight into it.
Unfortunate for Eric Peterson, which that's the good news is for Nick de Groot. That's going to move him up a space by the look of things as well. He's mired all the way down in 7th position. And I tell you what, if that's his finishing position tonight, with only 2 rounds left after this. That may be enough to sign, seal, and deliver him out of the championship contention. With the other 2 guys running up at the pointy end of the field, that points bubble, Matt, it's tightening, and you can't afford a poor finish at this stage.
Absolutely. I mean, right now it's kind of do or die time where, hey, all of your early season jitters, they need to be out by now because this is really where that money moment happens. And you have to put yourself in that position to capitalize on other people's losses. I mean, here's the thing. You need to be there if, that next guy in points slips up. You have to be there to capitalize and close the gap and even take advantage of it.
Long Beach is what Long Beach is. There will be opportunities today. And dare I say it, the commentator's curse, putting it over the front too. But I have a feeling that one of those 2 will end up in the wall just pushing too hard. Well, I tell you what, Henry Bennett thought he was escaping in the early phases of this race, and all of a sudden Ravon has closed that margin down quite aggressively. He's doing a phenomenal job to stay attached to Henry Bennett here.
So you just take a look back here, and really you see Ravon all over the back bumper of Henry Bennett. I mean, not really even giving him any room to breathe here. Makes the pass to looks like the left side. Going into the right-hander, he will have the preferred line, but won't be able to keep it.
And I mean, Bennett gave him the space there, really tried to allow him the opportunity to set it on down there. Ravon was not willing to send it around the outside. It closes quite aggressively on corner exit. First retirement of the night, too. Moskowitz has taken the number 4 machine behind the pit wall.
Very unfortunate, but hey, Moskowitz, one of those guys who, hey, he doesn't really have very storied reputation on road courses for being one of those guys who, continuously fight, but hey, he gives the road courses his best shot. And I know with next season, Scott, you've seen next season's schedule, and it's a little bit more road course intensive. And we go to some tracks that some of these guys may not be really familiar with. I mean, the Red Bull Ring comes to mind. But
the Red Bull Ring is going to be an absolutely fantastic race. It creates good racing. It creates passing opportunities, and it's a lot more open. There's no walls on the side of the track as you're going to get here. It's kind of similar to maybe a shorter version of Road America, and that made for an absolute cracking race early on in the season. Right, time to pick through the field. We are 6 laps in to this 50-lap affair here this evening. We've already seen Henry Bennett and Rick Ravon going at it up front. I want to talk about the next 2 guys in line. This is critical for these guys because this is a really good opportunity for Eric Schaus to get his season back on track with 2 rounds to go, and potentially an Indy win. I mean, that's huge when you head into Indy. You really want to be able to come in with a bit of momentum behind you.
It looks like, I'm sorry to cut away from his battle for 3rd and 4th, but it looks like Rick Ravon, he's still trying to make diving attempts on Henry Bennett, especially almost going into the fountain here. Really, it looks like Ravon kind of shadows Bennett for most of the half of the track, and then spends the next half of the track really trying to attack. Bennett gets spun around by Ravon.
Was there contact there? I didn't think there was contact. I'm gonna have to have a look at that. That was so close together. That much is certain. No, wow. Does the fabled gap whack play a part there? Because there was a foot between both of those cars, and I tell you what, I think there was gap whack involved.
So you see the run down here into turn 1, that big left-hander. See how Ravon really kind of takes advantage of the braking opportunity that Bennett left him. Closes the gap here, going into the fountain. Keeps closing the gap. Bennett gets a horrible exit out of the fountain. Ravon's right behind him. It looks like it was a little bit of that gap whack that you called it. Definitely played a little bit of a factor, but Scott, we mentioned that earlier where we knew that gap whack would end up really, really affecting out this race. And again, it was a tight technical track. We knew this was going to happen.
We 100% knew that this was going to happen, and also it's a difficult spot on the track for it to happen as well, because it's not really an overtaking opportunity heading in there into turn number 4, and the other problem is trying to extract the car, if your name is Henry Bennett as well, from that location. His rear wing is all kinds of messed up. The front wing, understandably so, but there's nothing he could have done.
If you look at Bennett's car right now, Bennett's car is crabbing hard.
I didn't even notice that.
If I say Bennett's car is crabbing hard, he still has a fast repair, which I'm pretty sure he's going to end up taking here now. But it's kind of in that mind of, all right, Henry Bennett has lost a ton here. Right now, you have to go into kind of disaster recovery mode. I will admit, if you were Nick DeGroot right now, you're loving this. You're loving the misfortune by Henry Bennett because, hey, that's giving you the opportunity to race your way into 2nd place, provided that Henry Bennett doesn't have that recovery drive that he needs.
All right, let's talk about point scenarios, seeing as you've conveniently brought this one up for me. Last time out at Iowa, Rick Ravon brought the championship lead much wider afield. It's now moved to 34 points, the margin between him and Henry Bennett. And Nick DeGroot, 10 points behind. Henry Bennett's still in pit lane. I think he got a speeding penalty.
Yes, it looks like Henry Bennett still stayed in pit lane. I wonder if he had a little bit of issues with the entry of pit lane.
It did look like he went in there a little bit hot, and then all of a sudden he stopped. So he got like halfway into the pit lane and then stopped. So that's a big issue. And well, recovery drive, that is the one thing you don't need if you're Henry Bennett. Yeah, sure, the day's
spin
going
behind
wrong.
Nick DeGroot. Nick DeGroot spun with Henry Bennett coming out of pit road. That huge, that's gonna really hurt Nick DeGroot. He was really trying to make a move on Gale Brooks there, and that really lost all of his time trying to catch up to him.
And Nick DeGroot's shoes, maybe it was that you didn't want to be over aggressive coming in there. Of course the car's going to be rejoining in front of you, but that's the nature of Long Beach. Cars are going to be rejoining in front of you all night long when they do their pit cycles. You just got to be ready for it.
I really don't even think it was Henry Bennett's fault that Nick DeGroot spun.
Oh, 100%.
It was that same issue that we saw with, it wasn't Eric Schaus earlier, it was Eric Peterson. Eric Peterson had where he just really overcooked it in the turn one, lost the rear end, got back on the gas, and the whole thing just spun right on around.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one person who this really plays into their hands is David Cook. He is now 6 seconds adrift of his teammate Rick Ravon. I tell you what, he started in P9. This is what he wanted to see. He wanted to see the chaos early. He wanted to just settle in there, look for the opportunities, and put his car into those open spaces when they presented themselves, but not do so aggressively. Needed a clean race here, and he's raced his way from 9th on the grid up to 2nd. What a start for David Cook.
Absolutely. I mean, Derek Cook has been kind of surprising in very quick time here. He's only started, looks like about 5 races, if I'm correct. Only about 5 races. He's made a mark of a lot better than a few guys who have multiple race starts, including yours truly.
Yeah, your season did not go well so far, has it, Matt Rodriguez?
No.
Let's see. What's your best finish?
This series? Maybe we shouldn't look into that. But definitely looks like Rick Ravon currently is flexing about a 5-second lead on David Cook. Got about a 8-second gap between David Cook and Covey Moore. So that top 3 is pretty well settled, but back behind looks like Gale Brooks still trying to chase down AJ Hobson for 5th.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, lap traffic, that is a big part of racing at Long Beach. It's tight, it's technical, and when a lap car makes a mistake directly in front of you, you've got to be careful and you've got to be ready for that. Ravon won't be looking to force the issue. And yeah, keeping your eyes in the background down in that 5th position. AJ Hobson, what a phenomenal finish for him this will be if he can hang on to this one right the way through.
Absolutely, AJ Hobson, I mean, really kind of one of those guys who I personally feel is a bit underrated, where some of the guys really don't think of him as a realistic race threat, but he's got speed at certain weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the finish and what he did last week at Iowa was a phenomenal job from AJ Hobson. I really was surprised. He really turned heads last week out, and it looks like he's going to be doing that once again. Gale Brooks, we'll see if he can keep the assault going onto the rear bumper of AJ Hobson. Lap times for these guys both last time around were in the 112, so neither of them punching out phenomenal pace, and somebody else around as well. Is that Peterson again? It is.
And Peterson, more issues out of that 36 Dark Horse Racing Machine. Just go ahead and take a look back. Looks like there's a few issues out of his camp. On that same bumpy seaside way kind of drive. Same thing. It looks like he cut the corner just a little bit tight. Ended up spinning out the back end. It looked like it was fine without damage until Peterson, I guess, maybe tried to get back going. Didn't realize he was that close to the wall and bent that front wing. I mean, Scott, how much will the lack of that front wing downforce really affect him on the right side?
Just taking a look at it, it is bent. There is a mark there, but it's so minor. There's really nothing in it. So I think he'll be okay. He'll get away with that one, and we'll see what he can do. But the issue for Peterson is that he's just been going backwards all night long. That's the 51. That's Jim Brooks.
Go ahead and take a look back at what happened to Jim Brooks. Like, everyone, they're just dropping like flies, but that is the nature of Long Beach, where so many of these drivers, they may have experience in other tight road courses, but they have never experienced Long Beach. Oh, it looks like Jim Brooks just overcooked it into one. I don't know what's worse, either overcooking it in the one and spinning the rear end out, or overcooking it in the one and plowing that outside wall. It looks like right now he's crabbing.
Yeah, I'd say overcooking it into turn one and then having to run the entire lap slowly, trying to get out of the lead car's way. That's not an easy thing to do. Well, I'll tell you what. I talked about lap traffic earlier. Let's talk about one of the guys that was in the championship fight a little bit ago. Matt Wagner hasn't been able to put himself a qualifying performance together the last few weeks, and this week he finally managed to get a lap in, started from the 6th position on the grid, and trouble has befallen Matt Wagner.
Well, if I'm correct, Matt Wagner had a little bit of pre-race scares with, I believe, a cable that belonged to his steering wheel. And that was the same issue that he had earlier this season at Road America, as Matt Wagner almost overran.
Get him off the screen. Nope. He won't want to see this later.
The same thing. I mean, Matt Wagner at Road America, I remember he reported issues with his steering wheel. He was using a backup wheel that just wasn't, I guess, either his usual or he wasn't used to it, didn't like it at all. But his regular wheel is out of commission. He didn't have a day to remember at Road America. I mean, he was fighting inside the top 5, but ended up having an issue later on that was kind of uncharacteristic of Matt Wagner. I believe Matt Wagner also won Watkins Glen, if I'm correct.
I think I was here for Watkins Glen.
No, you were not here for Watkins Glen. I was here for Watkins Glen. But I believe Matt Wagner won Watkins Glen. And that's why kind of either wheel issues or just kind of an odd night where Matt Wagner, one of those guys that I say it in and out, and I know that, hey, Matt Wagner does win some of these road course races, but he's not a guy that I typically go to road courses and expect to go out and dominate. He's one of those guys that I expect to stealthily work their way up through the field, but right now he is kind of in a hole trying to dig himself out.
And I think back to Mosport, Canadian Tire, Motorsports Park. That was exactly what he did. Didn't set a qualifying lap and worked his way up in the top 5. Unfortunately, his championship ambitions are over, so another bad performance tonight's not really going to affect his season too much, but I get the feeling he does want to keep pushing forwards, pushing on, and see if he can grab that P3 in the championship. You'd have to say so, man.
Yes, and now one of the Brooks family is out. We've got our second DNF car of the day. It has to be the 51 of Jim Brooks.
Jim! No!
After that impact to the turn 1 wall, looks like that car was just either deemed unrepairable or just he was kind of done with it and just threw up his hands. Looks like he has parked it for the day, but never to fear, Gale Brooks is still running. It looks like he is kind of taking up the place of running down AJ Hobson.
Let's go, Gale. So Jim Brooks had an opportunity to win earlier in the season. Whoa, what a late move from Gale Brooks. He sends it to the inside, and then he's going to back out and hand the position back. AJ Hobson, he was completely entitled to take that one, was Gale Brooks, and he just rolled out.
Realistically, I don't even know if it was the issue. I don't know if either Gale Brooks missed his braking point and just didn't expect the braking point to be right there, or if AJ Hobson completely missed his braking point and braked before he should have.
Well, no, I'm going to say, yeah, well, it doesn't matter. One of the best things you can do, write this tip down for later, Matt Rod, is if you know that you're going to miss a corner, you know that you're in too deep, don't bother trying to turn in the corner. Just hold the steering straight. Turn 1, it's got a huge amount of runoff zone here tonight, and I was expecting more drivers to take up on that.
That's the thing. Long Beach, certain corners have tons of runoff of it being a normal city street, but other corners here just don't have that same amount of runoff. Kind of a gifting space, but as look behind, looks like Jeff Hysong's now under battle from Nick DeGroot. Nick DeGroot, after that spin with Henry Bennett coming off pit road, looks like DeGroot has slowly worked his way back to the back bumper of Hysong.
He's got pace too, 0.6 of a second faster than Hysong last time by the stripe. We'll take a look from DeGroot's perspective. In fact, this might actually be a great opportunity, Matt, if we can grab an onboard shot of a lap. This will sort of tell you what it's like to drive in traffic around the Long Beach
Look at his hands. Just look at his hands. I mean, it's even pretty much full opposite lock each lap. And, hey, all the way to the right in this corner, all the way to the right, making sure you don't touch that wall. Then going all the way down, make sure you touch next to that right-hand wall. Back on the brakes, all the way to the left, making sure you don't spin out over these bumps. Same thing, all the way to the left-hand wall, back on the brakes, hard right. It is this lap after lap, and like you mentioned earlier pre-race, I mean, mental fatigue is something that these drivers really have to worry about.
Physical fatigue. Let's talk about some of those drivers that are on a direct drive wheel. And Matt Wagner did say that he did pick up his replacement wheel, direct drive wheel. That's putting a lot of force through the hands for these drivers.
And just look at how difficult that last corner is. I mean, really, they are full lock, and they are just hoping that that tire grips. Now, that also kind of brings a little bit more interesting of a point of, I mean, listen, if these tires don't grip, or later on in the race, assuming they don't grip, I mean, you are in for a world of pain on the exit of that corner.
Assuming they do grip, I think you're still in for a world of pain. I think that's just how that
Looks
one
like
works.
Gale Brooks had some issues. Gale Brooks is currently in pit road.
Unless we've started to hit that pit lane window. 17 laps now in the book for Gale Brooks. So pit stops, I get the feeling, will be coming up quick and fast.
Oh, there's a car on the front straightaway that had issues. I think that was Jimmy Drynan.
Well, that's not what Drynan wanted to do tonight, unfortunately. He's had a poor season the last couple of outings.
We'll say Drynan is just dreadful on road courses. That road course package is just not put together for him. And man, I don't know what happened there.
That looks like a hardware failure or something.
I don't know if his wheel disconnected, but man, that does not look good. He has junked that IndyCar. No front wing, no rear wing. Aye.
I think he was looking at fuel numbers to talk to you, to be serious with you there, and he was looking at something off screen because he definitely wasn't looking at his screen.
It was just very weird, but see Rick Ravon still pacing the field, still kind of setting down the hot laps here, and he's expanded his lead about 10 seconds up to David Cook. Covey Moore has really gotten by, looks like Jim Herrick here, kind of still holding down that third position. How long do you think these front runners are actually going to end up going before they take their first pit stop?
I'm not 100% sure, but just taking a quick look into David Cook's last lap, there's a mistake in the first sector, because the last time he crossed the line, he was only 7 seconds distant. This time by, that moves to 10.5 seconds. That's a huge time loss in the first sector, so something's definitely happened to him. He's got left side front wing damage too.
And just looking back here, it looks like Henry Bennett just made a pass on Eric Peterson. Eric Peterson made his way to pit road. Henry Bennett now up to the top 10 position. Bennett still trying to salvage what's left of his day, trying to get right back up to Rick Ravon. But right now in P10, he has to at least get past Nick DeGroot, who ended up going into the P7 position. Obviously, do you think he's got that rally back in him?
Well, he does. He's making a huge amount of time here. And last
AJ Hobson in pit road.
Gale Brooks has completed his pit, so we are rapidly approaching that pit stop cycle for a lot of these guys. So that is going to be a big factor for them. And I don't know, Matt. Well, I mean, they're not going to be able to make it home from here, so it's definitely a two-stop race.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of thing is I wonder if some of these drivers here are really trying to make it a one-stop race and trying to stretch it all the way to maybe lap 24, 25 and hoping they can save the rest. Or some of these drivers who had pitted early are just hoping that, hey, maybe we can do a multi-stop race, and these guys who are maybe attempting one stop just can't do it, and they're forced to make that late stop.
Well, I think we're about to find out because David Cook and Rick Ravon are in pit lane, and following David Cook in is Charles Teed as well. So a lot of the field's starting to come down and make their first stops of the night.
And that really puts Covey more in control of the race here. Covey is currently the first car longest on his stint with Jim Herrick in the LMCgear.com car, or IndyCar. It looks like he's going to be battling Rick Ravon exit. Now, we really didn't get a chance to really touch on the pit exit here, where pit exit is so dangerous because really that blue merge cone is all the way at the end of that big runoff where everyone is just fighting for space, and it is a tight pit exit.
Yeah, 100%. It is incredibly tight. So we'll see how that one goes for drivers as they continue their runs this evening. We'll see what they're able to pull out for us. And I'll tell you what, the battle here between Rick Ravon, who's now exited pit lane. He's come out immediately behind Jim Herrick. This one's heating up, although it's not for effective position.
Absolutely. That's the thing where we can really kind of compare these two cars now. Jim Herrick hasn't been on Ravon's pace, but just new tires versus old tires. I mean, who do you really think will have the advantage here? And is new tires really worth it?
Yeah, look, new tires is going to be worth it, but I think also crucially is you'll see Jim Herrick pull off is that Ravon's had the pace on these guys all night long, and that's the reason he's effectively a complete pit stop ahead.
So then Covey Moore comes down to complete his pit stop one lap later than Rick Ravon. So that really kind of puts some of these drivers in a questionable position of, do they think they can make it, or are they really just trying to push it and hope that maybe those last few laps they can just miraculously find some fuel somewhere?
I think it's going to be a test all night long. They're going to have to make multiple overtakes, multiple setups. There's a lot that's going to have to happen for the guys out here tonight. Nick de Groot has managed to make that pass on AJ Hobson now, so he's come out ahead of him. And he actually put a lap after AJ Hobson as well. So that one may have happened on track, may have happened in the pit road. So great job by there for Nick de Groot to grab that position back, because that'll be crucial to his championship hunt. And Kobe Moore slides it through turn number 5 as well.
Just looking for Kobe Moore here. And Kobe was one of those guys having a good day. Kind of surprising that, I didn't really think that Long Beach would be his really, metaphor cup of tea, but honestly, he has really taken to the streets of LA very well.
You think Boston, if they put a Boston street circuit in, that'd be more his cup of tea?
Let's put Nashville street circuit in. I don't think we'll have some fun.
Oof, let's go and cross your hometown bridge there, Mr. Rodriguez. You know how bad that one was, and IndyCar definitely didn't make it any...
bad. It wasn't bad. We only had one IndyCar turn into a plane, and we had scuba divers off the bridge. If they flew off, they could have got him.
How would you like to be off the edge of that bridge, sitting there getting paid all day to watch an IndyCar race from down below, where you get to see literally nothing?
I mean, here's the thing: if my car's on fire, I'm going to drive off the bridge because I'll hit the water. I'll put out the fire. That solves my immediate issue. Now, drowning, that's the second issue.
Oh, de Groot just got a little bit locked up on curbing there, I believe it was, as he starts to hunt down Jeff Highsong. I tell you what, we got a battle here. There's a whole bunch of guys that are right together on this track.
Just looking back here, there's really a battle for 6th place. Really, everyone's chasing 6th place as Matt Wagner makes a pass on Charles Teed. And Teed is one of those guys that we haven't really talked about today, besides his qualifying attempt. And realistically, Teed is not one of those guys that I really look at on a road course to, be the guy who's hounded making fast laps, but he's almost kind of in that same Matt Wagner territory where I expect him to be slowly tiptoeing his way around the track and slowly just working his way up positions. As I noticed, we have our 3rd DNF of the day, has to be Eric Schaus. And that's kind of a surprise because Schaus really likes these road courses, or maybe not even likes these road courses, but just has amazing luck at them.
Something I was thinking about pre-broadcast here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but would you say that this is probably the track too tough to tame IndyCar style?
I wouldn't almost say that, but it definitely kind of has a wide variety of really driver skills, because it shows various kind of car control and driver mentality, where turns here and really passing here comes up so quickly, and you have to be thinking almost 2-3 turns ahead and kind of planning out your last turns as if you're saying, hey, all right, this next few turns, the outside becomes really the dominant line, so I need to set myself up so I can get to that outside lane. And if I'm trying to pass someone, that just becomes way, way more complicated. Like we saw Rick Ray Vaughn and Henry Bennett battling back and forth. I mean, those guys, they had to tiptoe through most of these corners and then wait for more of the passing zones to open up.
We're just keeping an eye on, I believe that was Gale Brooks that was a little bit sideways. It might have been Jim Herrick, actually. No, it was Gale Brooks. So things starting to settle down. Jim Herrick has bolted away from these guys. He's a considerable margin up the road now, so we'll see what he's able to do with this and see if he's able to get anything done. But I tell you what, it is not easy to get around the streets of Long Beach, and a lot of the guys have been caught out by it tonight. Matt Wagner got caught out early, has managed to get himself all the way back up to 10th, and he'll just let Henry Bennett go. That's another early stop for Henry Bennett. He's going to have to make at least one more stop to get home as well.
I really wonder if Henry Bennett will actually be able to use that early adversity to his advantage here, because he knows that he has to make one more stop with how he pitted. But with him pitting probably about lap 30, lap 40, he'll pit a lot earlier than most of these guys in the field. I wonder if he'll be able to take those tires, take that advantage, and see if he can really just haul up to the front of the field, take advantage of some of these guys who pitted late, and they're going to have to end up pitting in the last 5-10 laps.
Yeah, we'll see if that works its way out, what the result of that one's going to be. And I'll tell you what, this battle between Herrick, Brooks, Highsong, Nick de Groot, AJ Hobson, it's really not settling itself down. They are still clustered together, particularly the 3 in the middle.
Absolutely. And I mean, Gale Brooks, one of those guys who we do, at least to my knowledge, we don't really praise his road course ability. He's one of those, really the Brooks family altogether. They have certain tracks that they pick out and they say, man, we are really great. New Hampshire comes to mind. New Hampshire, they had the chance to win that race with not some unfortunate events really taking place, but obviously they had the chance to really drive away there. And, one of those guys that we really see on road courses that would be a constant threat in and out would be Robert Milecka. And Milecka has not made an appearance tonight.
Yeah, I think the change to start times has not worked out for Robert Milecka, and that's sad because he's had a phenomenal defending championship season. It hasn't been good enough. Jess Highsong's going to lose the rear end on the brakes going into turn 1. Will lose the spot to Nick de Groot. So Nick de Groot now up into 6th place, and all of a sudden, Rick Ravon needs to start going, yep, I've just got to let this race unfold, and I've got to drive it at, let's say, 8 tenths. I don't need to push it all.
That's the main thing, is that I wonder if Highsong was really just kind of some of these guys really have to kind of put themselves in the moment and kind of take a deep breath, because, hey, I wonder if Highsong was trying to chase down Gale Brooks, saying, hey, I can want that 5th position back, but I know that I've got Nick de Groot who's hungry and who needs these positions behind me, who, once he gets my back bumper, he is going to be all over me. I wonder if he just kind of had that moment get to him and lost focus for just a second, and just a second on Long Beach is all it needs.
Yeah, well, I mean, a minute 10 seconds lap, and there's 11 corners to squeeze in, and some of them double up, all of them really, really slow. You're constantly doing something around Long Beach. Even the straights aren't really perfectly straight. That's a big critical factor of those guys. So, the racing continues. Who is going to come out on top? That is the critical factor here tonight. Ravon has a healthy margin, and all of a sudden it slides a little bit. He did have 7 seconds was the margin back to David Cook. It's now 5.5.
Absolutely. You really wonder if David Cook is, I don't want to say team orders, but listen, I mean, assuming that Henry Bennett is just a madman, somehow drives up the entire field at about 2 seconds of a pace, as it looks like Charles Teed is currently using a push to pass. It looks like that is his 5th of the race, so he is currently trying to make a little bit of ground up on Matt Wagner, trying to keep Eric Peterson behind him as well.
I think that's going to be a crucial factor here as well, is how you utilize those push to passes. Can you just give me a field rundown at this point in time here, Matt?
Absolutely. Our top 5 goes as Ravon, Cook, Moore, Herrick, and Brooks. There's really your top 5. Back after that, it gets a little bit more complex with Nick de Groot still trying to work his way through the field. We've seen him pretty much chase down guys in front of him multiple times, so I wouldn't be surprised to see de Groot back in the top 5 here in about a few laps. Highsong had that incident but dropped him outside the top 6. So he's currently on the recovery drive trying to catch back up to Nick de Groot. AJ Hobson still having some issues. Looks like Jim Herrick lost position to Gale Brooks.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that one plays out, because Herrick...
he's now fallen victim to Nick de Groot.
Well, he is really drifting backwards. He must have had a big mistake. Yeah, he's lost 6 seconds alone in just the first sector. That's a huge amount of time. You can't be affording to do that around here.
Just taking a look at his onboard going into turn 1, and he had the same issue as, Jim Brooks, where Jim Brooks really overcooked turn 1, and unlike Brooks, where Brooks ended up hitting the wall and kept going, he hit it right smack dab on the nose, right into that tire barrier, had to back out a little bit, and that really opened up the door for both Gale Brooks and Nick de Groot to go on around.
That's unfortunate. Well, that's how it happens down here at Long Beach, and at least he'll be able to go for a paddle in the ocean and refresh himself after the race. One of the benefits of being in Long Beach, California.
Well, the biggest issue here is, obviously Jim Herrick is fast. We saw him multiple times, and he held down that 3rd position and 4th position up with speed alone, and strategy did help. But Jim Herrick has been fast this entire race, and he's really showing it here. I would not be surprised to see him really give de Groot a run for his money, but that obviously puts de Groot inside the top 5, and I'm Ravon. I'd kind of be a little bit concerned the higher he gets, because right now, if I continue dominating the race, I don't really have very much to worry about as long as that 89 is behind me. But
tell you what, David Cook is closing. David Cook's down to under 4 seconds now. That margin was 7 seconds a couple laps ago.
Looks like AJ Hobson had some issues. AJ Hobson went around.
Everything actually looks okay on Hobson's side. So it looks like it was a spin. He's kept it off the wall. That's critical.
Oh, he in that bumpy section going back onto the main street, and really is that same issue. I remember I did that in practice, but it's that same issue where really you just have so many bumps and you lose that rear end. Almost drove right back into Cook in traffic. Thankfully, he kind of held it, ended up looking for a safe spot, slid it right back on around. He's still going.
Yeah, well, traffic management is a huge part about racing around here. Been doing a solid job so far, so we'll see if he can manage to continue doing that for David Cook. And, well, with the leaders, they're rapidly approaching. If you have a look at this, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th, all a couple corners away for these guys, and David Cook is nearly on top of Rick Ravon now. That gap is nothing. It's down to 1.5 seconds.
So you really wonder if it's either Cook that's pushing or Ravon that's trying to save. So I wonder if Ravon is tempting that one-stop strategy and Cook may be pushing it to see, hey, wonder if I can really do this, two-stop strategy and make it work.
Wagner has left the race. Wagner is gone, and that will be it. If you thought that for one moment that he had a shot at winning this title, it is now gone.
And that hurts for Wagner, where Wagner, I'm sure he wasn't coming in here expecting to win the race, but he was definitely hoping for a better night than it was. But, I mean, this is kind of bad night gone worse.
Unfortunate for Matt Wagner. It's been a tough season for him. It's been a tough season for just about everyone here. Multiple drivers falling by the wayside. Rick Ravon has really been the driver to really best the pack for the large bulk of the season, so we'll see if he can continue to do that here tonight, or all of a sudden David Cook says, you know what, it's time for me to list my name in victory lane.
And David Cook is someone I really worry about. Now I really wonder how tough he's really going to run Rick for this first position, obviously considering their teammates, and Rick has a little bit more on the line here where we don't want to push it, so I wonder if it's either going to be a, hey, stay behind me and kind of let this run out deal, or is it going to be a, hey, I'm going to let you buy in a corner and you go, I need to save my stuff.
Well, we talked to them last week after Iowa, and they said there's none of that. It's literally, you race me clean, and you just look after each other just a little bit more. That's the only stipulation. When you're running on a team, that needs to be the stipulation. You want to see both cars crossing the finish line, and wouldn't it be disastrous if David Cook gets up here, goes to overtake Rick, and locks a brake on the way into turn 1 or something?
It is worth noting that Rick's last lap time was a 109.258, with Cook's being a 108.677. Passing around this time, Ravon was a 109.504. Cook was a 109.672. Rick actually ran about a tenth faster there. So I'm actually kind of wondering if Rick's noticing, but Rick's running on a slow car. That's to be Charles Teed.
But even worse than that is it's going to be the place for David Cook to come across the slow car as well. We'll see if these guys can continue their fight. What happens from here? Is it going to be Ravon that gets the elbows out, gets defensive, because that car, David Cook's, yeah, he's back a few phases at this point in time, but he is coming, and there is no way to get around that.
See, that's the majority of the issue with Long Beach, is there's just nowhere to pass, and when something goes wrong or someone is not as up to speed as you, that makes it 10 times more difficult. Just looking at the back, really pod of Rick Ravon's car, you can still see the little speck that is David Cook, but obviously opened up a little bit more of a lead. David Cook is working on chasing down Rick Ravon, already shortened that 2-second gap down to almost about 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, and that's critical. You've got to make sure that you keep closing that margin. You can't leave it where it currently stands. What are these guys going to do? Well, stay with us. What we're going to do here, I hope you got this set up, Matt, is we're going to go FRN side-by-side. Have we got that available?
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and do a FRN side-by-side. Watch these two battle it out here.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and Teague. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and team. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you can only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the streets of Long Beach. And I tell you what, if you took your eyes off the screen for any period of time just there, you would have just missed what happened to Nick de Groot in the fence right in front of the leaders and grabbing it all the way home. So Nick de Groot in the wars, and I tell you what, all of a sudden, Henry Bennett's starting to play himself back into things, and Rick Ravon, every single time that David Cook gets close, gets bailed out by lap traffic as well.
So watching here, I'm looking at Nick de Groot go into turn one, goes into turn one normal and almost loses it on exit, spins it on exit, slams into the wall, and then was really in a bad place in between the fountain and that little turn one area. Gets back going, but you can already see on the onboard that car is crabbing. Now, while that car is crabbing, you have issues already in the back of him, because if you look back here, the leaders are coming. So you just wait. There you see Rick Ravon. Ravon is, here's the thing, he's on his way. That's already one lap down. You got David Cook right behind. Ravon managed to get through just fine. But you see de Groot's having such issues controlling the car. And looks like David Cook just didn't know where he was going. And that held up David Cook a ton.
Yeah, and Cook continues once again 0.7 seconds in the second of 4 sectors around this lap of a margin that he's pulled once again out of Rick Ravon. So Cook is coming. Does Ravon need to be scared? Will team what's the call? Team orders play a part within this one? I'm not even 100% sure.
I don't even think it would really be team orders at that point. It may just be, hey, I'd rather see my own teammate win rather than seeing someone else win. But you know, Henry Bennett, he has done that second pit stop, so it stands to wonder where if Henry Bennett is in the driver's seat here, or is he's going to be a little bit at a disadvantage. It looks like a car spun in front of the leaders. Once
again, it is so difficult for these guys to get through, and you wonder if lap traffic is going to be the death of these guys, because Ravon and Cook, they come through and find a car sideways once again. It's been the story of the night for these guys as David Cook continues to mount that charge.
So looking back, it actually looks to be the 18 of Jeff Highsong. Let's go ahead and take a quick look back at what happened to Highsong. Looks like he may have had a little bit of issues coming out of the fountain area back into that right-hander. And it looks like maybe the same trouble area that we've seen all night. Yep, just ends up overcooking it. But unlike that Nick de Groot and everyone else, he really stayed majority in the racing line, having that smarts to go ahead and roll out of the racing line, give leaders a little bit of room. But again, that adversely affects David Cook and slows him back down, making him go right back in that charge to Rick Ravon.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, say hello to, not Alex Palou, as, oh man, I forgot his name.
Rick Ravon! Ravon got very loose out of the corner. And just looking here, Ravon got so loose out of going really into and out of the fountain area. He almost wrecked it. That really opened up the door for David Cook to be right back on him. But Kobe Moore, looks like Kobe Moore is is he in the pit road? Yeah, he's in pit road right now.
This could be a scheduled stop. This could be his final stop for him. This could be for damage. Ravon weaving left and right on the straights. That says there is no team orders to me. It is going to be a straight shootout. And well, if somebody's found their guns, it's going to be David Cook. Only recent entry to the series. 5 starts prior to tonight under his belt. And he wants a piece of his teammate. They're both in.
And really, you have to maximize that pit road entry. And I don't think David Cook maximized that entry as well as he could.
Well, Cook's still right there in things. And they both take a little bit of a weave on pit lane entry. Not sure if that was needed, boys.
Absolutely, but obviously it's going to be the race of how close David Cook is to Rick Ray Vaughn as he gets off of his pit road. Obviously, it looks like they're going to change all 4 tires on the car, go ahead and fill it up with just enough fuel. So we're going to wait on board with David Cook, see how close he is to Rick Ray Vaughn leaving. And I think Ray Vaughn actually had a quicker pit stop than David Cook.
David Cook, they stopped in the box at nearly the exact same time, and David Cook came off the jacks first. So has Cook closed up that margin at all? We're going to find out soon as they rejoin the track. No, the margin has opened up, and my commentary colleague, Matt Rodriguez, was correct. Ray Vaughn looks it up, nearly puts it in the fence, keeps it out of the tire barrier somehow, and the margin he gained in pit road, it's gone.
That's the main thing of Rick Ray Vaughn's pit stop was 0.2 of a second quicker than David Cook, and we saw how much that 0.2 seconds really aided Rick Ray Vaughn. But hey, I mean, that is all thrown away with that incident in turn 1 with Rick Ray Vaughn.
Yeah, and well, I tell you what, it is getting tight. There is 11 laps to the end of the race from here. It is going to be an all-out shootout to the end of this race. Ray Vaughn is going to defend from David Cook. Let's see who is going to come out on top as David Cook returns to business. He's still faster than Ray Vaughn, in the middle sectors. Let's see if he can finish this one off. At lap traffic.
Look at the lap cars. Gale Brooks, Charles Teed, they're blocking both lines. Teed's going in the pit road, but Ray Vaughn still has to deal with the 71 of Gale Brooks. Now, Gale Brooks, he's providing a little bit of draft to bet 2 car here. But right now, Gale Brooks has that preferred line going into turn 1.
Tell you what, though, David Cook was actually slower in that final sector, and Brooks is going to be in the middle of these guys heading into the fountain. This is Cook's worst nightmare. He does not want to see this.
Oh, and Gale Brooks almost got the wall, but right now, really, David Cook, Gale Brooks led him by, but I was worried that David Cook wouldn't be able to get by from those next 2 corners.
He lost half a second in those first 2 sectors. That's a huge amount. When you've only got 10 laps or so to get there, you need to get to your teammate's bumper, and you need to get a hurry on, or else you are going to run out of time. There's only 2 overtaking spots at Long Beach, so you're going to have to get the elbows out to get it done here.
We've shown in time and time again, David Cook has been able to chase his way back down to Rick Ray Vaughn, but both of them now on same tires. Even with Ray Vaughn having that little bit of a slide, locking up his tires in the 1, you think that's going to affect it any bit going into the long run, or still kind of stay really consistent here?
Well, we'll be able to see that out. Remember, cold tires when you come back out of the pits. Ray Vaughn thought he had him up to temperature, went to go for the brake pedal, didn't play out his way. Cook begins that assault once again. He has been the faster of these 2 guys over the last 20 or so laps. He is coming.
As they get ready to go into the fountain area, still David Cook about 1 second back from Rick Ray Vaughn. Henry Bennett and really anyone in the top 3, 4, 5, 6 really out of it. Henry Bennett's hoping for a miracle out of these 2 top runners, the 2 and the 24, hoping that something happens between them that causes them to drop back down to the field. But Henry Bennett, if he's able to hold on to his 3rd place position, doesn't need any more pit stops.
He's in the pits.
A great recovery for him. Oh, man.
But I tell you what, High Song is right there with him, still needs to stop. So Gale Brooks and I believe that's Jim Herrick are the 2 cars that sit in the middle of these guys.
Just like that. I mean, just look at the weaving that Rick Ray Vaughn just trying to break all of the draft from the 24 as possible. The 24 has chased him down all the way to half a second.
I get the feeling that that's actually going to make things worse, and it will make things better because he needs that tire temperature, Matt. He does not want to overheat these things.
I mean, what's worse, having too hot of tires, having him catch, or really delaying him catching you by the draft, or letting him have the draft, but having those cooler tires to help fend them off.
And Cook weaves on the straightaway just to let him know, hey, I'm coming. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled to your rearview mirror because I am there, and you've got to beware. There is no other way around this one. You've got to be aggressive now if you're David Cook, and he's there. He is there. The margin's under half a second. He's going to be able to show the nose the next time by at the back end of this back straightaway, or alternatively, he's going to punch that push to pass button. He'll be there on the front stretch.
And it's worth noting, but both Rick Ray Vaughn and David Cook have not been the fastest drivers today, but they have been some of the most consistent drivers.
Ray Vaughn just got a little squiggle on coming down on the back straight, and here comes David Cook. He's there. He bails out a little bit early. He's looking at the front stretch. He thinks that's his best opportunity to get things done here.
And realistically, I've noticed David Cook been able to capitalize on the final corner a lot better than Rick Rayvon. But Rayvon's been able to capitalize on exit.
Well, we'll see if he can get it done here from David Cook. It seems like that last corner, he loses half a second in the final sector of the lap. And Matt, I gotta tell you, I need to go to their push-to-pass numbers. What are these guys looking like?
Realistically, right now, David Cook is really at a big deficit, and Rick Rayvon has barely touched his. Right now, David Cook has a 6 push-to-pass limit left, with Rick Rayvon having 3 more, and currently with 9, and that may not seem like that big of a deficit, but hey, push comes to shove. Rick Rayvon has 3 more he can utilize at any moment to really give himself some distance.
Well, we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled on how that plays itself out, because it's going to be a big factor in these closing races. It is on David Cook and Rick Rayvon. It is not going to go away. Keep your eyes peeled to the rear bumper of both of those cars. We'll see who can get it done on the streets of Long Beach.
Really just looking at both David Cook and Rick Rayvon, they know that draft is aiding the other, and right now the 24 is trying to stay in the draft of the 2, and the 2 is trying to break it as hard as he can. And it looks like Rick Rayvon, I've noticed him locking up the tires a little bit more in some of these corners, but he's still getting
weaving.
a better edge
He's
off.
vulnerable. He knows it. I wonder if he's punched that push-to-pass button, because all of a sudden he starts to stretch things out. Cook is just going to keep watching. He's still there. David Cook is still there. He's still coming. Huge amount of the toe heading down into turn number 1. He is putting Rayvon under threat, and you got to put yourself in Rayvon's shoes. Yes, a win here is a great result for you, but do you just let your teammate have this one and you just bank the points? You don't fight it because it's still a margin that you put over Henry Bennett. Henry Bennett, mind you, is now up to P3. What a drive from Bennett.
One thing that really still surprised me about these 2 drivers is that realistically neither of them have used their push to pass at all. They are still staying at both 9 and 6 respectively.
Put yourself in the chat room of Rick Rayvon and David Cook. What would you be saying at this point in time, Matt? Would you be saying, if you're in David Cook's shoes, hey, I'm faster?
It was like Charles Teed. Teed is in the runoff area, almost runs into the leaders.
Oh, that would have been disastrous for David Cook. Something else he wouldn't have wanted to go wrong. But he's still there, and he's closer again. I think he got a really good exit off the final corner. This might be it. This might be the sniff that he gets. Cook is coming. Cook has been coming. Now he's there. Will Rayvon go defensive? Is he going to block that inside line? No, he's going to drive it down the middle of the circuit, position the car as normal. So, I'm wondering if those push-to-pass numbers are starting to shrink and shrink and shrink.
No, sir. They are still staying 9 and 6 respectively. Neither driver has used a push to pass, which is really surprising.
This shouldn't be a fuel race because these guys pitted with 11 to go.
That really surprised me. I wonder if it's almost a gentleman's agreement, or really that the 24 is not trying to pass the 2 at all.
Well, they're putting on a show, that much is for certain, but the weaving on the straightaways, Matt, you wouldn't weave if you weren't... And here it goes again, to illustrate my point. The weaving on the straight, the trying to get them out of the toe, you wouldn't be doing that if you weren't fighting the guy.
I think realistically, he's trying to keep that gap, because I really don't know if Rick Rayvon completely trusts David Cook. I mean, obviously, you have a win dangled in front of you. Are you really going to lift and let the guy in front of you take it, even if it is a teammate for a championship?
Well, David Cook could be looking for a strong finish to his first championship outing with the Dark Horse Racing Series, and a win would be a great way to cap one off. And with 2 races to go, sorry. If
a little bit choked up.
if there's 2 races to go, ultimately, I would be saying if David Cook's going to get a win, and you have the opportunity to give it to him as a teammate, this race right here is probably the last round where you can gift that to him.
Absolutely. And definitely right now, I think Rick Rayvon, I think he's thinking bigger picture here, and maybe the 24 of David Cook really is trying to pass Rick Rayvon, but Rayvon's going more defensive, and he knows he has to, because he's looking at his relative, and he sees that 3rd place is Henry Bennett. Even after that pit stop, and Henry Bennett currently has fresher tires, but he is a lap down. So again, things play out badly. Henry Bennett can still end up somehow stealing this race.
Tell you what, this margin not opening up, not closing itself. It has been nearly locked together with these 2 for the last few laps. Last time by for Rayvon was a 108.324, 108.4 for David Cook. So, now, 5 laps to go. It'll be down to 4 laps to go. This time past the stripe. 107.911. Rick Rayvon puts in one of his fastest laps today to all of a sudden extend that gap by 0.2 of a second. There are tenths in this, Matt Rod, over the course of a race, as long as this one, with the starting position that David Cook has. You've got to say this is one of the drives of the season.
Easily, and David Cook is not making it easy for Rick Ray Vaughn. I mean, obviously, friendship and alliances lying where they are. David Cook is really looking like he is trying to take this, and you notice Henry Bennett lurking there in the background. He can kind of be a dark horse here, literally and figuratively. He can be a dark horse here and really kind of either give David Cook the advantage he needs, or even maybe hold up Rick Ray Vaughn just a little bit to give 24 the option.
They what? Still lurking. Both of these guys. The margin, it closes at the end of the back straight. It's down to 0.3 of a second. And again, a massive mistake, it looks like, in the early sectors for Rick Ray Vaughn has allowed David Cook to close once again. He'll sit there in the draft. 3 to go. We're running out of time. If David Cook is going to show the nose, it's got to be soon. You want to show it before the last lap so you could give yourself the opportunity to back off and have another crack.
That's the main thing is, do you really want to show your hands this early, or do you want to wait till later on? It is worth noting that Rick Ray Vaughn has used 3 of his push to passes. He currently only has 5 left, with David Cook still maintaining his 6 push to passes left.
Sometimes you just forget that button's available. Open up the engine, get some more horsepower out of it. And if Rick Ray Vaughn's been using those fast repairs, it has not opened the margin up whatsoever. David Cook is still there. I'm wondering if there wasn't a fuel question mark over both of those guys, because punching the push to pass button would definitely burn more fuel.
Here's my whole thing is, I kind of like if David Cook has waited this long to use any push to passes just out of fear of letting Rick Ray Vaughn use his push to passes. That's going to be a big question mark.
He's closer. Ray Vaughn locked the brakes going into the final corner there. There is nothing between the nose.
Ray Vaughn uses another push to pass.
And is there a response from David Cook? I don't think he's necessarily pushed it. That margin was opening itself on the front stretch. 2 laps left now. David Cook, your time is running out. You got to have a crack soon.
Rick Ray Vaughn has been using his push passes. He's now down the floor. David Cook has still not used any of his push to passes, but just look at how close he's keeping the margin without using one.
So what, you might be right about him getting into the mind here for David Cook of Rick Ray Vaughn, because Ray Vaughn made a mistake coming through the fountain section, nearly brushed the rule. Cook had to bail out of the throttle.
See, this is where the team owner hat kind of gets put on, and hey, if you're the team owner here, you're kind of saying like, listen guys, let's kind of make sure we don't wreck each other, because you're seeing these mistakes out of Rick Ray Vaughn, and it's like, all right guys, let's think of the team here. Are we really going to wreck 2 cars just for a race win, but we could walk away with a championship here?
Everybody would say, yes, please. Can you guys please do that for me just this one time?
I've had a lot of experience with that.
Well, last lap, Henry Bennett's there in the background. And I tell you what, Henry Bennett's got beef. Rick Ray Vaughn gets on the power. The rear of the car snaps out. I guess that's going to be a push to fast burn. And David Cook is a long way back this time. 0.7 of a second as they go onto the straight. Henry Bennett's there, and Henry Bennett will want to get up here and have a crack at Rick Ray Vaughn. It may have been netcode earlier on in the piece, but they were so close together, contact was inevitable.
Absolutely. It looks like both Rick Ray Vaughn and David Cook has burnt some push passes. Rick Ray Vaughn is down to 3, with David Cook down to 4.
And here it comes. Cook now right there at the rear bumper of Rick Ray Vaughn. Tries to get himself out of the tow because he wants access to that fall down force on the front wing. 1, 2, 3 on the track, albeit there is a lap between Henry Bennett and Rick Ray Vaughn. And Bennett, I wonder if you'll get involved in this.
Ray Vaughn uses a push to pass. No response from Cook.
Well, Cook's out of time now. That's really the last opportunity to burn them down into the last corner.
Oh, no.
Henry Bennett gets involved. There was no need for that from Bennett. Nothing to gain here.
And that really hands it to Rick Ray Vaughn. Rick Ray Vaughn's going to end up taking the victory. Henry Bennett will finish 3rd, but David Cook, he'll be able to limp it back around to steal 2nd place. He still has about a lap advantage, but definitely kind of a letdown. I don't really know what happened there. Let's go ahead and take a look back at that just to kind of verify. You said it yourself. Looks like David Cook did get a little bit of contact. Going down the straight here. Looks like Henry Bennett's trying to... Man, it looks like Henry Bennett just didn't realize the braking zone and really tried to make a pass on the 24, maybe in a desperate attempt really to kind of get to the back of Rick Ray Vaughn.
he pulled it up. He pulled it up for the corner. So I don't know if David Cook just bailed out early. This is the problem with team orders.
Just looking from the onboard of Henry Bennett, and it just really looked like they just did not. It even looked like Henry Bennett just was not ready for that, or really David Cook just lifted way too early.
My word. That is one of the weirdest moments in motorsport I've seen.
Just looking back at it one more time, and you see David Cook. Just looking at from the onboard of David Cook, you've got both mirrors in your view. You see behind you, you see that IndyCar back on your right side, back on your left side. Now he's back in your blind spot, still going down the back straightaway. You see Henry Bennett.
He broke early. He actually did. He bailed. This was team orders. This is team orders at play, for sure. He bailed early.
So that brings a bigger question if it was Rick Ray Vaughn who was worried about Henry Bennett getting back to him.
Well, it's the last lap. There's 2 corners left. They're braking early because they're not racing each other for position, and they're just trying to... The lap time from Rick Ray Vaughn actually suggests otherwise, 1:08.4. So I'm nearly curious whether or not Cook expected Bennett to go down the inside, and he's like, right, well, I've got a second place finish locked up. There's no reason.
Well, on the bright side, they all finished top 3, so we should get an interview with all of them. So we can go ahead and break this down from multiple angles here.
Well, Rick Ray Vaughn posts another win in the win column for him so far this season. That is win number 5. Henry Bennett now level with him at 5 wins apiece. Robert Penleska, the only other driver with anywhere near that realm of wins at 4. And there's only been 2 other drivers to win a race this season, which has been Nick de Groot and Matt Wagner. I tell you what, it has been a phenomenal race here from the streets of Long Beach, and I wonder what the drivers are going to have to say, particularly with that end of race moment in. It's going to be interesting to talk to them. As usual, I don't think we're going to get the opportunity to talk to Henry Bennett. He does have other immediate issues that he needs to go and deal with. So immediately after the race, we very irregularly get to talk to him. So that's unfortunate for Henry Bennett, but I look forward to speaking to David Cook in just a few moments.
Absolutely. As we go through you saw our top 10, our top 17 we have here, but obviously that top 3, definitely kind of our point of concern. And I wonder if this is really going to carry into next week at Texas.
And it's going to be an interesting race for sure. And I mean, those points will be uploaded again momentarily. The administration team here get those up and running very quickly immediately after the races are finished, because they want to be able us to talk about them before next week's race. Well, 16 races of the 18 of the Dark Horse Racing Series season number 4 now in the book. I'll tell you what, if you thought it couldn't get spicier, what about contact on the last lap of the race with a lap between second and third place finishing? And I think Henry Bennett will be a little bit annoyed with what went on in the early phases of the race between himself and Rick Ray Vaughn. It was tight. You wanted to see those guys go at it cleanly on the track, and Netco gets in the way. Gap whack prevents us from what would have been one of the fights of the season. And indeed, I think Henry Bennett had a huge opportunity tonight, Matt, to stamp his authority and start that comeback. Chasing down Rick Ray Vaughn.
Absolutely. You know, we've kind of hit on it before, but Henry Bennett has had no luck at these road courses. I mean, he was dominating Watkins Glen, and he was very much in class of the field. Ended up having internet issues that dropped him out of the race and dropped him all the way outside a good top 10 finish. And you got to wonder if all these what ifs would have turned into better finishes, or at least just, inside top 5 finishes that he was dominating the race of, or even wins, how close this championship battle would be.
Well, speaking of what ifs, what if Nick de Groot didn't have internet issues tonight? He'll round out the field in P number 9, but it's a what could have been for Nick de Groot, because he showed pace, he climbed through the field, and he had contact with the wall right in front of the leaders, and things still didn't go his way. So Nick de Groot, all of us, you've got to say, a 9th finish is not good enough for him to keep himself in contention with 2 races to go.
Absolutely, but let's go ahead. It looks like we've got our top 2 finishers here. We've got both David Cook and Rick Ray Vaughn. So let's go ahead and bring in David Cook, our second place finisher.
David, Scott and Seth up here in the booth. Scott and Seth. Scott and Matt in the booth. How are you going here tonight?
Hey guys, how's it going?
How's the hands after are you on a direct drive wheel here? Are you still on one of the lower end wheels?
Yeah, I still got a CSL Elite, but it does the job, And yeah, the hands are okay, I guess.
That's
So David,
what I was more concerned about. Was hopefully no
go ahead.
broken fingers or anything. Yeah. Direct drive wheels, they hurt, right? So
David, I'm going to go ahead and I'll cut straight to the point. I'd say, what happened on that last lap?
Well, I don't know. He said something about me breaking 100 yards earlier, and I don't know. Looked to me like he didn't even try to hit the brakes until about the 200 mark, and I was braking way before that the whole race. So it is what it is. I'm sorry. Sorry that they got into contact early on in the race, but it is what it is. I mean, I got into the back of Nick. He tried to go left for me so I could get underneath him, and I just misjudged that, and the car started to lock up on me, and I got into the back of him. So it's just one of those tracks, man. It's just so tough.
I mean, 2 races left in the season now. Was there any team orders involved in tonight? I mean, it's crucial that Rick gets another strong finish here. So, I mean, he was weaving on the straights. That said to us that there was no team orders. You had to fight him out for it. But give us the inside scoop from the team comms.
Yeah, I was catching him pretty good there, but coming out of that last corner, he was like a rocket, and it was just giving him that just enough of a lead going into turn 1 that I couldn't do anything with it for the rest of the lap. So he was just doing a heck of a job coming out of that last corner.
Well, David, it's another phenomenal race finish for you, and I mean it's tough coming into a league with what 6, 7, 8 races to go, and trying to get your stamp out there. But it's more about supporting your teammates. So I'll give you the opportunity to thank your sponsors.
Well, hey, thank you to you guys, man. You guys, like I said, you guys are the best. Thanks to Rick once again. Dark Horse Series, man, I'm having so much fun here. The Norton on my car, which is pretty famous, so that's cool to have that on my car and be competing here. So, and thanks again, guys. I just hope that everybody's okay with that race. It was tough on everybody, and I know a lot of feelings got hurt out there, but that's racing, and honestly, if you can't take it, it might be better to look to do something else because we've all been wrecked and we've all wrecked people. So you just gotta take it for what it is and look forward to the next race.
So the only other question I have for you is if you get wrecked by Rick, do you call that a Rick roll?
Oh my God!
Oh, you have to. How could you not?
There you go. And Matt is looking for a new lead commentator.
There it goes.
Currently on Craigslist. Thank you very much for speaking with us, David. We'll go ahead and we'll hopefully be able to talk to you again next week, hopefully in a better position.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
And that was David Cook, second place finisher. Let's go ahead and pull down our race winner, Rick Rayvon.
There you go, Rick. Scott and Matt up here in the booth. Let me get the names right this time around. So, Long Beach, it's tough. It's sweaty. You don't get a moment's worth of breath. How are you feeling first and foremost after the race? How are you starting to stretch everything out? Still doing the victory lap? Still enjoying everything I see out there? Good to do a little bit of a cool down and just sort of reset and not drive at full speed sometimes.
Oh yeah, I don't want to stop. I love this place. My wife was born and raised in Long Beach, and if she didn't move, I never would have met her. But I told her, I said, honey, because you know what? I got to tell you, yesterday she thought she was having a heart attack. Oh boy. And she called me and I said, just relax, honey. It's probably anxiety. And she said, no, this was really bad. I think I'm going to call the paramedics. I'm like, are you sure? She said, yeah, honey, I'll call you back. Anyway, she ended up in the hospital. This was all yesterday. And they ran her through all these tests. It turned out to be stress and anxiety. Thank God. But I told her, honey, I says, I don't know how I'm going to win this race because, we got my teammate Dave Cook was lightning quick. Henry Bennett is going to be out there. I don't know if Melissa is going to be out there, but I'm going to do everything I can to win this race for you. And she go, oh, that would be wonderful. And here we are in victory lane. I feel so bad for Henry Bennett. We had good race pace. We had really good race pace. And I was expecting me and Henry to, fight it out. And I don't know, maybe he'd make a mistake. I would get by. Maybe I could get by him on pace because I knew we had the speed. But then there was a little bit of net code there. I was right there behind him. We followed him through the corner, and I just feel, I'm sorry, Henry. It had nothing to do with me, man. It was net code, and it's a damn shame because Henry was in a real good position to win this thing too. So it would have been nice if we could have duked it out, but I guess it just wasn't meant to be. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Henry.
So, Rick, I do have to ask, obviously, with you getting the win and both Henry Bennett still getting third place, even after all that, you guys are still within pretty well striking distance of points. I mean, does that really affect how you go into next week? I mean, possibly having a target on your back, or?
I don't. Well, no, not really. I'm just like I said the last time. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. I mean, I've been successful. Just trying to be quick and smooth and smart out there, and look for any advantage that I could get. How to I don't know, get through traffic and just how to get around the racetrack. I don't know which Texas we're going to use next week. The new one, the older one. I think this is going to be a very close race because at Texas, everybody should be stuck together like glue, I think. But, we'll see what happens. It's important to get to the end of the race and get there clean for the points. And that's really the agenda.
Well, look, Rick, I mean, 2 rounds now left in the season. After last week, the margin had started to really balloon out. It was 34 points in another 2 places you've got here tonight over Henry Bennett. I mean, it was quick, it was tight, but the road racing all the way through the season has been quick, it's been tight, and it's great to see. It's so difficult when you get guys that are oval specialists, coming to road courses. They get this warm-up event, and then all of a sudden they're thrown right in the deep end to finish the season off at Long Beach, and it can have such big championship implications, to steal the words of Dylan Moskowitz. But look, I mean, you come out the other side, and it's a positive finish. You got to take those when they come.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%. I mean, I went into this thing thinking if I could get a top 3 out of this and just maintain the lead, I'll be happy with that. I really didn't expect to get the win. The object here was just to get through the dang race clean because you got walls on both sides and, there's a bumpy track. And this setup, I ran a stock iRacing setup and it had a lot more grip. And then, we got the race setup. They released it, I think, Sunday. We went out and practiced. I said, boy, this thing's sliding around more than the default iRacing setup, the high downforce setup. But you just got to deal with it, man. The good news is, and that's why I'm here. That's why I love fixed racing because everybody's in the same boat and you just got to figure out, the ins and outs of it and where you can get on the power, don't get on it too early. There's a lot of bumps in this track. It could upset the back end of the car, could come around so easily, man. It's so easy to make a mistake and hit the wall. And I made a couple of mistakes. I got the back end sideways, but I was able to hang on to it and keep going. But I was really looking forward to a battle there with Bennett, but what happened. It's a shame. And then my teammate Dave Cook was reeling me in, and I'm like, oh man. I said, dude, you know what? If you're faster, do what you got to do. But whatever you do, please don't hit me. Let's not take each other out. That would be the worst thing to happen. And he was close, and I started trying to break the draft on the straightaways in the last several laps because I had pushed the passes left. I started to use them on the straight because you get a launch off that last corner. You get going before the guy before you, so you kind of launch in front. And I started using the push to pass, and he wasn't able to get me by turn 1 and. Everything just worked out, but he had me under some pressure there. I had to turn it up. After Bennett, when I was able to relax a little bit, I know the lap times came down. But then, Cook started reeling me in that Norton spirit. And I was like, I got to put this Gould charge. I got to turn it up. I got to get going, man. It's time to go.
Well, mate, you've been turning it up multiple notches week after week after week as we come towards the back end of the season. There's now 2 rounds to go. Will you be able to lock it up? Well, first of all, we got to get you to thank your sponsors for this evening because they make this all possible.
Well, to answer that question, I don't know if I'll be able to lock it up. I mean, it's still a tough field, and we have 2 oval races to go. The ovals are the great equalizer, too. I don't know. I would love to, but, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But let's see, sponsors and shout-outs. Thank you, Gould, for sponsoring me. Thanks to, oh, boy, man, oh, man, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I can't think. Patriot Speed with me and Cook. Thanks to my teammate. He's an awesome teammate. Thanks to, of course, Teed. And oh, boy, I'm sorry. Hold on a second.
Okay, Rick, we'll fill you to the end of the race.
Hey, I don't need any more fuel. The race is over, buddy. Yeah, I'm good to go. The race is over. Thanks anyway. The hell's wrong with my guy?
Well, look, at least you got a helpful pit crew. They want to fill you up even though the race is over.
Yeah, you want to fill me up so I can take more celebratory laps? Hey, I'm down with that. Bring the gas tank over. But Eric Peterson, thanks so much, you guys, for putting on this league. Thanks to FRN. My wife, I don't know, she probably fell asleep. She probably missed. If any race was the one to watch, it's her hometown race. But she probably missed this one because she didn't come down screaming. So she's probably up in bed snoring away. But thanks to my kids, Mercedes, Mila, Zoe, rather. She likes to be called that. I love you guys so much. Thanks to all the drivers. Everybody was so courteous out there, as they usually are when the leaders come up, and super, super grateful for that. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Thanks for my Facebook followers who cheer me on. Thanks to the Lord Jesus for giving me life. And I don't know, man. I cannot believe the run that we're on. You mentioned momentum a few races ago, and I said, yeah, it's important. And I really feel like we have it on our side. And here we are. I can't believe 4 out of the last 5 or something like that. I don't know. This is just incredible. I just can't believe it.
Well, Rick, we'll let you go and enjoy the wind down after this one. It's been a cracker of a season so far and 2 races to go. Let's see if you can put your name on that cup at Texas or if it goes all the way to Indy.
I hope so. I'll tell you, it'll be a crowning achievement in my sim racing career to win the Dark Horse Championship. That would be something else.
Would be something else. Well, thank you very much for your kind words and everything tonight, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, Matt, another pleasurable stream, another pleasurable race, and what a race it was. This has been a championship full of ups, full of downs, and full of, apparently tonight, lots of different turnarounds. It wasn't just the track that these guys were fighting, it was everything that it had to throw at them. And I tell you what, it's not over yet. We go next week to Texas, and exactly what Mr. Rick Ravon said there as well. Texas is a absolute brute of a race because those cars are going to be locked together.
Absolutely. Points are in after this race, and just looking at the point standings, really Rick Ravon has managed to double his points lead against Henry Bennett, and same thing about Nick DeGroot, managed to double his points against him too. Right now, it looks like Matt Wagner, I can at least say with a little bit of confidence, I believe he is out of contention. I don't think he's going to be able to really rally back from 156 points back, but Nick DeGroot, 92 points back of the leader. He still has a shot, but really needs to be perfect for both Texas, race 17, Texas and then Indy, which are our final race of the season. Same with Henry Bennett. Henry Bennett lost about 30 points here, even though he finished P3. I mean, that is a huge hit for him. He's going to need to go on a tear these next 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a huge run to the finish for these guys to get it back over Rick Ravon. He's going to just need some nice, clean races to get it done. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week when we take to the oval of Texas Motor Speedway. It is going to be another cracker, as has been delivered all season long by the Dark Horse Racing Series. We'll join you then, but between now and then, don't forget to tune in Friday night. We've got Backfire Sim Racing. They are in their playoff standings, and that season has had a whole host of phenomenal races. Well, Chris Woodard heads into Friday night's race. He went from the top of the standings to right down near the bottom, and now he's going to crawl his way back up into playoff contention.
Absolutely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to bring this race to you here tonight, and it's been a pleasure from Matt Rodriguez as well, and as a care from the entire broadcast team here at the Flat Out Racing Network. We hope you had a phenomenal night, and remember, this has been another broadcast brought to you courtesy of the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.